Hey, Shepherd.
Hello.
So,
Yes, sir.
so
Yeah.
I had a little
Brother
technical.
Sloan,
Hey, how you doing, man?
can you hear me?
Yes, I can. But
Yeah, I'm
can you
yeah,
hear?
I'm good.
Okay,
Yeah, I can hear you.
you can hear me. Okay, great.
Yeah.
These international,
Yeah.
these countries across the ocean kind of things. What can we say?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah.
So I've been wanting to
Sure,
talk.
man.
I've been wanting to talk to you for a while. Just to find out.
Yeah, I was very busy in the last days in Makanda because I had to with the marking and the moderation of marks and all of that. So
Mm,
it was hectic.
mm.
And yeah, but now I'm in Cape Town. I arrived Friday. I drove all the way
Ooh.
from Makanda to Cape Town. So I arrived Friday.
Oh, okay, all right. So, but listen, okay.
Yeah.
But by the way, let me just ask you now. You're teaching at university there. Are y'all going to classes? In the states we zoom in and all the rest of this stuff. What are y'all together? What's going on there?
It's still zooming, and then then when we moved from level 5 to level 1, we moved level 5, level 4, level 3. When we hit level 3, went to level 2, then there was a gradual allowance of students to come back to campus. About a first it was a 30% of the students, 33%. Then the next lot, when we moved to level 2, was 66%. So we didn't have 100% by the time we ended the year. It was still about 66%, and the rest were, and there it would prioritize those students who do not have, for some reason, are struggling with access from home.
Mm,
And the country hasn't had a very good network connectivity across everywhere.
mm.
It's there are pockets where it's bad. There's no connection, and in fact, I have one student at least. So there could be more, but one student was staying in an area, in a rural area, in a village in the Transkei. Is called Elliot Dale. Is a place in is called Kocha.
Mm-hmm.
She was staying in that village, and she just could not connect. She would connect for like a few minutes, and then it dies down.
Mm.
And then they got her a laptop, which the universities do. That they loan students laptops, but the BESA for some of the students, especially the students who are needy, who are like in the category of the poorest category.
Mm-hmm.
They get bursaries from a national BESA called NISFAS.
Mm-hmm.
So they got NISFAS, got them laptops. But now with this student, she got a laptop. When she got a laptop, the next week I connected with her to show her how to use some of the software for editing, for audio editing. Mm. And as I'm going through with her, it took about 15 minutes, and the next thing the laptop died. The connection dies. Mm. And when I call her on a phone and asked what happened, and then she said, and I could only connect with her a few minutes later. She said, no, a battery died. Mm. And so I said, okay, look, charge up the battery. Why didn't you? And in fact, at that moment, I'd forgotten that there's no electricity in the village. So she couldn't charge up. To charge up, she has to pay a taxi return fare on a taxi of 128 or so rands.
Really?
Back and forth with the taxi, to the nearest town, where she charges the laptop for 10 rands. They charge her 10 rands to charge. So it's cheap to charge at least. But then, you pay this 128. And then she comes back. So it takes a day of inactivity. And the university never factors this thing when they plan. Because they plan on the basis of all the students having Wi-Fi and whatever,
Yeah, they play.
and yet the majority of the students don't
Yeah,
have.
they play on what we call, middle class values. But let me ask you something. Wow, that's illuminating. But years ago, I was trying to. Well, who am I? I can't push for anything. I was trying to tell people about Li-Fi and that what should happen
Yeah,
as that.
very much. I thought of you throughout this process. That your brother Sloan, he was way ahead of our times, man, because he had this idea of life. Yeah, man. I just thought of you. Yeah,
Yeah, but the idea even now. Okay, I'm gonna let me go it this way. Here's the thing. Now,
yeah,
as we know, if you want to say who runs or who has the power in South Africa, for me, the most powerful sector, if you want to put it that way, as far as on the ground, is the taxis. Of course, the
yeah,
taxi unions. That's the most powerful. Forget the police.
yeah.
Forget
Oh yeah,
gangs. Is the taxis. Okay. Now, then, I guess in a
yeah,
weird sort of sense, the university, even though there's not a lot, is sort of like the next power. Okay? I'm not saying that's
yeah,
true. I'm not saying that's true. I'm just making this postulate. Now, isn't there a
yeah,
way that the university can force the government, right, to for
yeah,
this infrastructure because you have so many rural areas or whatever have you. For this, especially now, you can use COVID as an excuse to pour this money into
yeah,
so where the university forces the government to supply. I don't want to say Li-Fi, but anything that would have connectivity to every area in South Africa. That's my question. How is the university
yeah.
powerful enough to do that? And because okay,
It is. It is, but the question is not whether it is powerful. It definitely is powerful. The question is whether it has the will, the political will on the part of the universities, because the universities don't seem to recognize that they have this power. When they do recognize, then they seem to be scared. They don't have the will to exercise it, to demand of government to do that. And now, I mean, with this pandemic, it's really kind of open, and it's so good because for the first time, it has brought into the lecture theater, the lecture rooms, it has brought all the contradictions of our society. So for the first time, the lecturers themselves, when we were doing an evaluation, I was saying to my colleagues, it's so good because all of us now, for the first time, can see the conditions under which our students live. Because before, the university was an equalizer. You thought that these kids in front of you inside the classroom, they all come from equal background. You didn't see the what do they call it now in computer language? You didn't see the back end of their lives. You were seeing them on face value, on presenting themselves in front of you inside the classroom, and you thought they all came from the same socioeconomic background. But this pandemic has exposed that. The fact that they had to operate more.
I have another thing. Here's the thing about this whole when this pandemic first started. The first thing I said, to a bunch of people, I said, look, the powers that be is going to take advantage of. Everybody thinks it's conspiracy theory, whatever, but they're going to take advantage of the pandemic to their advantage. So my basic question always is, okay, you're going to do the stimulus check, for instance, in the United States all goes to like the shipping lines or whatever have you. Whatever, they go to places that right now we have another stimulus bill, and you got people. I think Pakistan is getting money. Israel is getting money. They got money to study fish in Gulf of Mexico. All kinds of things other than money for the people, And of course, the politicians, the politicians are perpetrating that. But there's no people organization enough to really, get. I don't know. People just I don't know what they call it. My point really is this. You can. The pandemic is the pandemic. And everybody's is an let's put this: the virus is an opportunistic virus. Why can't we be opportunistic? In other words, the evil forces take this opportunity to do their evil things. Can't we find Because you still have student unions all over. Forget the university. Even if the student unions they came together with fees must fall or statues must fall, why can't they come together with forget falling? Wire up South Africa. I'm sorry. Let me start all over again. Not wire up South Africa. This is my whole postulate about Li-Fi. Wire up Southern Africa. In other words, I'm talking about you go through. Okay, I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying? The SADC countries. They're all. It's just the SADC countries. Forget SADC. All SADC countries all over. They all got to come together. We're wiring it up. We get free. We're talking about free internet access. Now, this is the opportunity to do this. How can this get done is what I'm asking you. You as a former student activist, you tell me how can be done.
Yeah. No, it definitely can be done. The student activists themselves, what I've done, for instance, take the case of that student of mine I was talking to you about. That student, I said to her, when I heard now the story, I said to her, listen here, what do you think must be done in the circumstances that you are in? And for me, I was watching her awareness of the agency that she has in her hands. And I picked up that she has an inclination in that direction. Then we began to talk about, look, even if it's a project, because for the first time, possibilities of you validating the reason and the hopes of the people in your village, your family, the people in for having sent you to university. Now, for the first time, it's possible for us to validate the worth of the university by you getting involved in projects that will then address this need, which include from solar power in the village, because there is a lot of sun in the village. The fact that there's no electricity, it shouldn't stop us. So it's solar, and then secondly, it's some ways of addressing these pockets of what do they call? They call it a blind spot, or a spot, a hidden spot of the connectivity where there is no connect. So it's worth it, and that's that should be a university project mission. The student movement, of course, ought to take it. They don't even need to hesitate about picking up on this and doing something. My frustrations with the student movement is it was battered through that fees must fall struggles. They were battered because they kind of in a number of campuses, including my campus, they went back to classrooms, to lecture rooms, defeated in the sense that their immediate goals were not achieved. And then so they went back, and when they went back, they kind of had their tail between their legs, and it's always very difficult to call students back to the streets after that, because whereas if you demonstrate your achievements that you'd made in the previous struggle, it's pretty easier to call upon them again.
Well, the problem you have with the problem we have with student movements, and I can tell you from experience, and you should know this too. This is one thing I learned from when we had upheaval in the 60s. The problem with any movement is that student movements, the problem is the student is only student for what, 4 years, maybe 5 years, maybe 6 years, then they move on. So there's no sustaining of it. This is why I'm saying something else. I'm saying something else. You cannot rely on the students exactly. You can rely on the unions because the student union has a little bit longer longevity. But the problem, I think, really is it has to be a region-wide thing. That's why I keep on saying SADC. I don't understand why we can't get SADC. Or because, you have countries in Southern African region is rich. They got money. They got minerals, they got resources, they got bartering power, and that way, and you have brain power. Somebody in Lesotho is just as smart as somebody in Botswana, just as smart as somebody, in Madagascar, whatever. And if as a static thing, I'm frustrated because I know what I'm talking about. And I've had these thoughts for somebody, and every year goes by, every month that goes by, I have other thoughts that builds on, builds on, builds on that. And I'm not writing no papers. I'm not, I ain't got no influence to nobody. The work that I'm doing in DaBrother is doing some other stuff. But I really think that it has to be a student/youth movement that's region wide, student/youth, because youth groups tend to last a little bit longer than the student things. And then you have to, here we go. This is the big one now. This is the real big one. Student/union. That's the head of the spear, if you want, the tip of the spear, if you want. It's backed by tribal. How do I say tribal? What am I talking about? Traditional councils. You know what I'm saying? Chiefs.
Yeah.
In other words, the chiefs are the chiefs can never be they're not as powerful as the taxi gangs or the politicians or the anything, but they can be the backup. So in other words, and the chief councils, if you get them to do all these traditional councils, they're the backup for the students/youth movements, and then that creates another gang as well. I don't want to say it like another another factor, another power base. Now, am I wrong with this? And would this work in your head? Because you're smarter than I am with this sort of stuff. Because you're a struggle leader for real, and you stay that way. Tell me where this will fall apart. Tell me where I'm wrong, or tell me what the possibilities are.
Oh, no, you spot on. Especially if you say with the student unions, the university, like the unions. Because I think that's where it's a weakest link at this stage. Because if we could reactivate that level of organization, I think that it will get us far. And secondly, you are right in the sense that they need support and allies at different levels. My trust really doesn't lie so much on the traditional leaders, because the traditional leaders have discredited themselves in the process, because they tend to be the what do you call it now, the overseers
they can be
of land, and they antagonize their local constituencies in the process, because what happens is that if they give access to land and therefore to mineral rights under the land, and it's usually to companies, and it's usually in return for something for their own pockets. So they've discredited.
No, I understand that part. I'm sorry, Sheppy. I understand that perfectly. I'm sorry. I understand that. And that's their thing. That's what I'm trying to say. That's their thing. This is something else. You're asking them to support the youth in their areas. The youth for something else that they're not. They can't really. How do you say? They can't really pimp right away. And all it is for their charges. I don't know, their villages or whatever have you, to have this. It's communications. Okay, has nothing to do with digging the minerals or anything like that. You understand what I'm saying? It's something that they won't be able to game right away, because and on all you're asking.
No. As long as it's clear there, because they what I found is that if they see opportunities for gain, they will support it, but on condition that they will have they use their muscle to kind of work out benefits for themselves. But there are pockets of examples, like the Bafokeng community in the Northwest, which did this thing, and it did it successfully, and is able to control. It's got schools in the community, and it was traditional leaders that were leading this process. They've got schools, they've got an enclave of development, which is amazing, man. I mean, schools with computers, with computerized laboratories, and fully stocked libraries. They work very well in the Northwest. Yeah.
Okay.
So it needs an exemplary leadership.
Well,
on the side of traditional leadership.
let me go. Let me keep on brainstorming this. I'm sorry I have to be so forceful with this because I want to be I'm trying to be kind of
Oh,
clear. I'm not looking for laptops
yeah,
and all the rest of that stuff. I'm looking for
yeah,
connectivity,
yeah,
which means I'm looking for energy
yeah,
sources and an internet way that will work. I say Wi-Fi will work
yeah,
better, whatever have it.
yeah,
But let me go. Let's talk
yeah,
about energy. Graphene is coming
yeah,
on this situation. You got solar power now. South Africa or Southern Africa. This blows my mind. Let me give you another thing. You know how I'm always thinking in the future. There's a thing called wave
yeah,
power. I don't know if I talked to you about before, where basically the force of the waves gives you energy. Okay? Now, so you set up these
yeah,
contraptions in the ocean. Now, Southern Africa has two oceans. They have the Atlantic and the Indian Ocean. Now, if you set up these things, it's like a barrier. I don't know how to explain it. But not only will you deal with the sharks not being a bigger threat, but this gives you an energy. And this is like a passive thing. But you can also put this wave power catches also in rivers and all the rest of this stuff. And if you and
yeah,
so in other words, I'm trying to say instead of government or whatever, let the private people do their wind power or whatever, their solar power, because they're on that already. But this wave power, this wave power can benefit again the entire SADC region. I'm going to keep on saying SADC. I hate South Africa as a term. Southern Africa, SADC.
yeah,
I'm talking about SADC,
yeah,
SADC, SADC, SADC. I'm tired of this because this country, no, SADC wants some little Pan Africanism. SADC, SADC, SADC,
not,
SADC. Has to be a SADC
yeah,
wide movement that we're going to set up this wave power to go through or to go through rivers and to oceans to give us the energy that we need to get to either power Wi-Fi or whatever. We don't have to do no cables and nothing like that. And the things about laptops or whatever it is, people will buy or they'll find their own cell phones because this benefits not just students. I'm talking about, like I always like to say, the goat herder in Lesotho can now talk to the goat herder in Peru, that kind of thing.
yeah.
So
No,
anyway,
definitely,
I don't know how
definitely,
I just don't know how to do that.
definitely true.
Well anyway.
No, there's lots. There's possibilities. There's possibilities. As I say, the only thing for me is like you need. There are structures. They are. I mean, at different levels. Then even trade unions have got structures across the region. The thing is just to activate the will, to act on this because it's a. I think people are beginning now to realize it's the only this pandemic was a blessing in disguise because for the first time it forced us to question everything that we've taken for granted, and now possibilities exist for us to think outside the box, to reimagine everything.
Well, there's a point. Are you going to be able to take this blessing? It's a blessing only if you can
Yeah,
receive it.
well,
you
we
know,
have to.
you know.
Yeah, no, we have to. We
Uh,
got no choice. We have to. Otherwise, for our own survival, for the sake of our survival, we have to. There's no other way. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Sheppy,
No, no other way.
I want to end this part right here. I'm gonna make. I want to hang up with you. I'm gonna change the tape. I'm gonna make this part one. I gotta talk about some other stuff. So hold on just a second.